What's up, movie fans? So recently I've been making all of these ranking videos on stuff that's come out recently, but today we're doing something a little different, as almost all of these movies that I'm going to be talking about today came out all the way back in the 90s. We are talking about the Disney Renaissance. A few of you might not even know what that is, but basically there was a period in the 70s and the 80s where Disney Animation Studios was creating all of these movies that nobody liked. There were a few that were good, but a lot of them were really bad. They were like failing at the box office, and it was just horrible, and it almost ended Disney. The Disney Dark Age was the name of that entire era where all of those bad movies were coming out. Before that was the Golden Age, where they were making like a bunch of good movies. Then, in the 90s, it started in 1989, the Disney Renaissance came. Today, we are going to be ranking all 10 movies that are in the Disney Renaissance. All of these movies are really, really good. So this list was really, really hard to make because, like, I wouldn't say that there's a bad one in the bunch. Please don't get mad if your favorite is down lower, because I can't stress this enough. All of them are good. So number 10 is Pocahontas. This movie is good, but I feel like it could have been way better. The main problem that I have with this movie is just it's forgettable, and a lot of it is really, really boring. The plot works well enough. The characters work well enough. Just a lot of it is very slow. There's not really a lot of really enjoyable scenes. It just sort of drags. And also, this is a total side note, and I'm not judging this off of the movie's quality at all. I did an assignment at school where I had to look at this movie and look at the actual historical events that it's based on. And this movie, only about 20% of it is actually accurate to the actual historical events. So that's just like a little funny thing that I just heard to say. Besides that, the movie's okay. It just like sort of drags, and that's the only reason why I have it in last. Now at number 9 is The Rescuers Down Under. This was actually the sequel to a movie that came out in the Dark Age, The Rescuers. I honestly sort of see this movie as a leftover from the Dark Age. Like, I wouldn't call it as good as most of these other Renaissance movies. It's forgettable, and a lot of the Dark Age movies are very forgettable too. I like it more than Pocahontas because I'm not bored while watching it. I can enjoy it, but it's just very forgettable. Like, there's nothing about it that really stands out that you're going to remember forever. It's not really that interesting, and that's my only big problem with it. At number 8, Hercules. This was the part of the list where it got really, really hard because I thought that Pocahontas and The Rescuers Down Under were sort of easy to place because I've always not really liked those movies that much. Hercules, I really enjoy this movie. I think that Hercules is like developed really well in this movie. I think that Hades is a very entertaining villain. I think that a lot of this movie was done really, really well. However, it's just simply not as good as some of the other movies. I don't really have a big problem with it. My only huge problem with it would be that, this is a spoiler, the final battle when Hercules saves Meg, that entire sequence made absolutely no sense. So I guess now let's move on to number 7. Prior to going into this list, number 7 was actually the only movie on this list I hadn't seen. I just watched it yesterday. It is The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This movie is really good. It had a really, really good story. I think that this movie is probably all about the story. Like, the characters are great too, but the story, like, is really good. And I also have to say that the villain, I honestly forget his name. I can literally remember most of the other characters' names, but for some reason I can't remember his name. But I thought that he was really intimidating, but I don't really think it's as good as the other 6 movies on this list. It's good, but it's not amazing. Number 6 is The Little Mermaid. This was actually the first movie in the Renaissance, so in a way, this was sort of the movie that saved Disney. I think that it's pretty good. Ariel is a pretty good character. The Ursula is a pretty good villain. A lot of the songs are great. There's a lot of stuff about this movie that's really, really good, but I can't put it higher because the next 5 on the list are just amazing. I think that they are some of the best Disney movies ever. This one I just don't think is as good, so I couldn't put it in the top 5. But now, coming in at number 5 is Tarzan. I grew up watching this movie. Like, this is probably, I don't know for sure, but this is probably the movie on this list that I've watched the most times, and I really like it. A lot of the stuff that they did in this movie, it was great character development. They had a really good story. Now, one thing that I do have to say is that of all of the movies on this list, the villain is probably the second worst, because the villain in the Renaissance movies is always really, really good most of the time. There are 2 that I don't think are really that good. The other one is on a later movie on the list, but this movie is still really, really good. Now, at number 4 is Mulan, and this is the movie that I was talking about where the villain isn't really good. This villain, I can't even, like, remember a lot about him, and I bet that you can't either, because the villain in this movie is really, really dumb. Mulan is a really, really good movie. I can't wait for the live-action remake. I know that a lot of people are mad that they're making a lot of these live-action remakes because they're saying it's just all copying the original. But at this point, I think that that's sort of the point. I don't think that any of them are going to actually change from the original, so I've just stopped expecting that, and now I can enjoy a lot of them a lot more. Aladdin, the live-action remake of that, did a really good job of it. Mulan, I think, is a really, really good movie. Mulan's a great character. The songs are great. I don't really have a lot more to say. Now we're going to move into the top 3. Number 3, and a lot of people, even though it's number 3, are still going to expect this to be higher, but I only have it at number 3, and that is Beauty and the Beast. I think that it's obviously a classic. It's a really, really good movie. The songs are great, the characters are great, the story is great, everything about it is great, but since the Renaissance is just so good, I just think there are 2 more movies on this list that are a bit more entertaining and fun than it. Which this movie isn't really supposed to be more entertaining, but I like it when movies are really, really fun, so I have 2 movies above this. So now number 2 is Aladdin. Aladdin is a great character. It has great villain, great songs. And then the big thing about it is obviously Robin Williams' performance as the genie, which is amazing. It went down in history as one of the best performances ever, and it's amazing. So now, number 1, The Lion King. My favorite Disney movie of all time. This story, the characters, a lot of it is funny, a lot of it is just really, really well done, and I really like a lot of it. I don't really have a lot to say about this one, because everybody can agree it's really, really good, and there's not really a lot of problems that I have about it. Yeah, that's about it. I really, really like this movie, and I really like this era. All of these movies are really good. This era was the best era in Disney history. I guess that's all I really have to say. So, see ya, movie fans.